Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your voice, the host. Welcome to the Speakeasy.
I want to spar poetically with the greatness of thine existence.
I have to get something off my chest.
To be your verbal visa everywhere you want to be.
Because if I don't, I just may explode.
Taking pride in living off the tip of your tongue, growing at the base of your throat.
If I told you that I wanted to be with you because I love you, that would be a lie.
Etched in the base of thy mind while you witness my oral fixation with words.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you, grow old with you.
I want to get to know your soul,
Hello, my name is Thomas Lynch, CEO of Incite-tv, television out the box. We want to thank you for joining us today. The programming that you're about to view was produced by one of our partner production companies. We are excited about bringing you the best in North Carolina programming. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to call us. Our number is 252-714-8249. You can also write us by email. Our email address is info@incite-tv.net. Again, we're excited to bring you this programming, and we thank you for watching us the years that we've been on. Remember, your Incite TV starts now.
Hello, I'm Gale Shiver, filling in for Houston Vine tonight here at Incite TV. Houston has the night off, but we have a very exciting interview for you. So I want you to sit back and relax and hear this man that we're going to interview tonight, Faris Dixon. He is the Assistant District Attorney here in Pitt County. We're here in Pitt County Courtroom, and we're going to be talking with this man. He's running for District Court Judge here in Pitt County. And I want you to get a chance to really get to know the man. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're here in the courtroom at Pitt County Courthouse with Faris Dixon. Mr. Dixon, welcome, and we thank you for taking the opportunity to meet with us and share a little bit with our viewing audience. Mr. Dixon, I want the viewing audience to have a chance to get to really know who you are. You know, we hear about our assistant district attorneys, and we hear about the different people who are running for district court judge, and we want to have an opportunity to know you, the person. So I would like for you to share with us a little bit about where you come from, who you are, and a little bit about your background.
Well, I was raised in Goldsboro by my mother. Graduated from Goldsboro High School in 1985. And while we were there, obviously, I attended First African Baptist. At the time, it was Pastor Horton. Okay. And I then transitioned from there to Duke University, where I got my undergraduate degree in psychology. And then went from there to Chapel Hill, where I got my degree from UNC Law School in '92.
That's great. You know, I realized just today that you grew up in the same area where, you know, I was raised in Wayne County. So that's great. I also understand from your bio that you work your way through school, and I commend you for that, because it's not easy going through school and having to work at the same time. One thing one thing I would like to know as a woman of God, you know, I'm a minister, is if you could tell me your profession. Is this something you chose, or was it a calling for you, or when did you actually know this is what you were supposed to do?
Well, I actually went to college with a general idea of what I was going to enter into. Ended up being a psychology major, and I didn't choose law until my sophomore year, the end of my sophomore year, actually. And I started pursuing that, I knew that with a psychology degree, I could still go to law school because it doesn't require a specific set of knowledge. You just have to do well in the classes that you take. So I finished up undergraduate, took the LSAT, and was fortunate enough to get in. Got into Duke on scholarships and also worked my way through for additional money because I didn't want to be a burden on my mother. And ended up driving buses most of that time, actually. Wow. Started as a student bus driver and then a student supervisor. My choice actually started as just a career. And I was never supposed to be a trial attorney. I thought I was going to sit in an office, move paper around, make some money. And but I knew that I needed experience initially, and so I chose to work at Legal Services down in Robeson County. Well, I knew I would get a lot of experience doing a lot of civil work. I ended up being a trial attorney there, doing divorces and separation agreements in domestic cases. And also I did do a lot of paperwork, though. As the elder law attorney, I represented the elderly, would help them with their deeds, wills, power of attorneys, and help with their estate planning, essentially. And I found that after about 3 years, I wanted to get some additional experience in the courtroom. Went to the DA's office in Robeson County. And I was there for about 16 months when my mom's illness progressed to the point where I had to come home and take care of her. And I sought a position here back east. And the DA's office here actually didn't have a position. Neither did the DA's office that covers Wayne County. And so I ended up working at the public defender's office, which was a great experience. And doing that, I got to see the other side, the defense side of it, which was an eye-opener. The experience of having clients that may not want to tell you the truth, and then trying to decipher what's the truth, speaking with the officer, and making a determination, you know, what's the situation with this case. It was at that point, after about 4 years, I then sought a position here at the DA's office when there was an opening, and I worked here additionally, and I think I actually ran into my calling when I was accidentally placed in juvenile court. I had done juvenile court in Robeson County, and I enjoyed it, and actually they wanted me to stay there to do that. But again, my mom got sick, and I came back, and I found that juvenile court was really where I needed to be at. It was where I felt and where I know you can make the biggest difference with reducing recidivism, which is just reducing people going into the system and coming back out again. It also allowed an opportunity to sort of be a mentor. Even when you're prosecuting somebody in juvenile court, you know, they look at you and it gives an imprint on them as to how you carry yourself and bearing, and I felt that was important. Just
to kind of recap some things that you just said that really blessed me. It really blessed me how you've been had the experience of actually hands-on experience helping the elderly and making an impact on young people. You're absolutely right. At that age, you can really make an imprint, and it really makes an impression as to how they see the legal system altogether based on their interaction with an attorney or just the whole system itself. We had talked earlier about myself being in law enforcement years ago, and I've always been on the other side of the law, and in recent years I've had to deal with some things on the other side, and it can get, I can see how you're working in public defender's office might have been an eye-opener, because it can, that's a different angle when you're on the other side of the law or dealing with people on the other side of the law. And I commend you for that. And I definitely commend you for making that move for your mother. There's nothing like family. And on that note, I want you to share with us a little bit more about your family and your faith and how the two tie into what you do. I understand you're married, you have children. Tell us a little bit about that and your mom, and how all of this ties into what you do today, your family and your faith.
Well, my wife and I actually started dating when I got out of law school back in '92. It was a blind date, oddly enough.
Somebody set it up.
Yes. I was working while waiting for my bar results with an attorney in Goldsboro, and his secretary, one of his secretaries said, you know, I got a cousin you need to talk to. I've never gone out on a blind date. And she kept telling me that, and finally I agreed, and she agreed, and we met met in Snow Hill, and then she brought me to Greenville, which is the first time I'd been in Greenville since the early 80s, because I had an aunt who had a nephew here that played football, one of the Strayhorns, and we came to see a football game. And we have been together since. We dated for 5 years, and when I moved home in '97, I got married, but I still took care of my mother. My mother and my aunt were living together, but it was hard on my aunt because my aunt was 18 years older than my mother. And so I took it upon myself to take my mom to dialysis and to help look after her. Interesting part was I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get her to dialysis, get her cleaned up, washed, and take care of her, and get her dialysis by 6. Then drive to Greenville, go to court for a full day, finish court. And that time, I had a really heavy caseload, so I'd have to get back to the office, talk to clients, parents, and then get back home, which was tough. And my wife and I had gotten married at that point because we wanted to have children. And so Delane, our daughter, who's now 14, was on the way, and she came. And many sleepless nights while trying to get up, to get ready at 4 o'clock in the morning to go take care of my mom. It was a challenge, but it was a blessing. My wife worked well with us, and she ended up going to back to school herself during that same time period. Delane is now 14 years old. She's a freshman at South Central. She's in the Health Sciences Academy. She wants to be a doctor and an attorney.
Wow.
I know it's going to take a long time. And when she first mentioned that to me, I said, the first indication was, say, that's too much to do. But then, the small voice you have, it tells you, said, keep your mouth shut. This girl's got a dream. Let her pursue it.
That's great.
And we actually encountered this summer a young lady whose son is actually in the process of finishing that up. He's already got a medical degree, and he's just finished up law school.
Wow.
So she's got the mind power and the brains to do it. You just let her go.
That is great.
And as I said, my wife went back to college, ended up going to ECU here and getting her degree in criminal justice and graduated magna cum laude.
Great. Wonderful.
My son came along 4 years after my daughter, 2002. He's the personality in the house. I got a distinct feeling either, everybody says when they hear him speak, he's going to be a preacher or a businessman. He's got that sort of attitude, the people personality. And he's doing well in the school. They're both doing great. My wife is back in school now pursuing licensure to teach and then her master's. Eventually she may pursue a PhD.
Great.
So we focus on education. We allow my kids to come and see me here. And actually, there's a little teaching lesson to them. I take them by the holding cells, which are just back there when we come in. And I remind them, if you get in trouble, what's going to happen? So you're not coming to get us, Daddy. That's right. You know better. You get in trouble, you're staying. And I'm not coming to get you. And I think that's an important lesson, that they understand the criminal justice system, see it for what it is, but also understand that you make choices to get here.
Yes.
As you knew from in law enforcement. And I see it as a calling. The DA before me, he also saw it as calling that handled the court. A friend of mine by the name of Darth Akins, who passed this year. And we took it upon ourselves, particularly with the number of black males that were in that system, to try and make an impact on them.
Yes. That's important.
And I do see results. Occasionally, we have failures. But I saw a young man just last week when I was at the Aiden Collard Festival. When he came into the juvenile system, he was terrible. And he came back several times. And then I didn't see him anymore until about 2 years ago. He came back again, and I saw him in court. But this time, he wasn't sitting on the defendant side or the juvenile side. He's actually a victim. And the interesting conversation he had with me, he sat in court. Court takes a long time sometimes, and he was fidgeting around. And after a while, he called me over and said, Mr. Dixon, why don't you talk to him about doing some community service, have them pay some restitution, and then I want to go back to school. That last part was the key, because school was not what he was interested in before. Wow. He understood what the system was like. It wasn't necessarily for punishment, at least for the juveniles, but for education also. And he had a heart of forgiveness, but more importantly, he wanted to educate himself.
And that's got to be really rewarding to see people like that after a time period has gone by, and to know that maybe you made a difference in their life. And it sounds like your family, you have a good family, a close family, beautiful kids, and a strong wife, you know, to stand by your side. Talk a little bit more with me, Mr. Dixon, about your faith. How does your faith impact what you do? I know we understand that you're a believer, that you are a Christian, you believe in God, and I want to know, how does that impact what you do, or how does it help what you do, having that relationship with God?
It impacts me in the way that I carry myself in the courtroom. When I was initially trained as a DA, well, there are several ways to do the job. As a police officer, you know, you can be really nasty, particularly with defendants, or I like to be what you call the old Southern lawyer, you know, gracious, firm, but it's not required that you have to yell at people or show out. And I think that's important. I see that it has an effect on my victims. One, that they can see that I can be firm. You don't have to show out to make a point. And I found that even with defendants, even after I've sent them to prison later on, they'll come and see me in the mall and say, you know, Mr. Dixon, you were my DA. And the first response, particularly with my wife, she's wondering, you know, what's going to happen. But usually, you know, I was fair with them, firm, dealt well with them, and I didn't have to go out of the way to try and embarrass them. What I found is one of the things that a lot of people don't have in the criminal justice system is self-worth and self-respect. And if you can help them get that while doing your job and not trying to make them look bad in front of people, just being firm, they respect that. And it pays off later.
Yes, I agree with you on that, Mr. Dixon, because as we talked about my being in law enforcement, I was only like 21, 22 years old, and I learned at an early age that I was not big and bad enough to bully everybody just because I had a uniform and a gun on my side, and I learned that respect was a key thing with the worst of criminals, showing some respect and being fair, firm, and consistent in the way that you deal with people. And I recall, even though it's been many years, I recall talking to people with respect and not having to fight to arrest them. And they just said, okay, officer, and just turn around and wait for me to cuff them. And like you said, come back later and actually thank you because it changed their life or made an impact, or it gave them a chance to really look at their life. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, in reading, I went to your website and I saw a lot of great things that you've been doing in the community, that you're really involved in community work. And I encourage you who are watching, if you want to know a little bit more about Faris Dixon, go to his website, farisdixon.com, F-A-R-I-S, Dixon, D-I-X-I-O-N.
D-I-X-O-N.
D-I-X-O-N.com. And you'll get an opportunity to read a little bit more about his overall resume and CV. The question I want to ask you at this point is, me being a citizen here in Pitt County, why would you be the best choice for our district court judge? You need to tell me, why should I vote for you?
Well, we were just talking about juvenile court, and that plays, it's not all of district court, but it plays a great deal, and it's important in that aspect. Juvenile court is different than anything else in the court system. It has its own arcane rules, and juveniles have, as you recall, have their own protections built in. And I'm the only candidate that has any experience in juvenile court, and I can say that with confidence because I did juvenile court up until January of this year for 10 years straight. And my coworker, well, my opponent didn't get to the office till 5 years ago. So I know he wasn't in juvenile court and doesn't have any experience doing it. He was in a little bit of civil practice before then. Likewise, I have the most experience in divorces, which is another large part of the district court system, far more than my opponent. I have some experience in adult protective services, which is important, and also juvenile services, the civil side of whether or not a child is being mistreated, and that's primarily been my focus. Likewise, I have more experience because I've been practicing for 20 years. And then there's that life experience. You know, there's nothing like going through things and seeing cases. And I'm sure you remember from your own training, when you first became a law enforcement officer, everything was new. But then as you went along, you realized that there were nuances to everything. Just the way things look at the first instance may not be what it actually is. You have to step back and have that experience to do that. And in 20 years, I've handled a lot of different cases that I'm sure my opponent has not seen just because of the time he's been here. In particular, I recall that I've done 3 healthcare violations, which is odd. I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago with a judge and a public defender about it. And the public defender has been practicing law for 16 years and they haven't seen one, and I've seen 3. And it's an arcane, but the judge knew what it was. It's an arcane set of cases. For instance, it was actually set up for TB cases, you know, back in the 20s and 30s.
Okay.
And it involves people who have communicable diseases, but either can't or won't get treatment. And it's a serious health problem because if they don't get treated, then they'll spread that disease to others. And in one of those, the gentleman was homeless, had TB, and he could not get medication. He wasn't in the Medicare system, the Medicaid system. And he couldn't get the medication to get himself treated. And if you don't treat TB, the strain gets stronger and more resistant. And so it becomes a healthcare problem. And it's the only charge other than the DWI that's still left in the district court system, in which you can get 2 years. And in that particular case, it was one of those cases where the defendant actually wanted to go to jail. And when we did, we had him plead guilty. We sent him off to a hospital until he can get his full treatment and then brought him back. That way, we served him, but also served the public in that he wasn't walking around with a strain of TB that could infect others. And of course, you know, now that we have AIDS as a danger, and there are people who have AIDS are advised by the health department not to have unprotected sex, and they still do, and you have to deal with that. And those were the other 2 cases I dealt with. But I know that my opponent has not done those because for some reason in my office I always get the weird cases. I got the animal cruelty cases, a whole plethora of things that you don't see unless you've been there for a while. And I got those cases because I've been here long enough and I've seen a lot of different things. Likewise, DAs aren't allowed to be called experts, but if you want, going back to juvenile court, as you know, we've just had a murder case involving a juvenile. When that happened, my boss and another DA took that case, but they had to come to me to ask how to deal with it in juvenile court because the rules are all odd. And I had to file motions for them and advise them as to what to do. And in fact, when the newspaper wanted to know what was going to happen with the case, they had to direct them to me because I'm the one that had that knowledge. And there's nobody in the office that has that knowledge. So based on my experience, my education, and my fairness and integrity, for the last 20 years I've been practicing law and have never had the bar send me a notification that they were sanctioning me for anything. And likewise, I've never had a case come back from the Superior Court or the Court of Appeals saying that I did anything appropriate, either as a defense attorney, a civil attorney, or as a prosecutor.
That's great. People who are watching today, there's several things that I've heard from Mr. Dixon that really impresses me, and that is the fairness of how he operates in the legal system and how he understands hard work and sacrifice, the importance of hard work and sacrifice, and all of the experience that he has had in his 19 years, or 20 years, did you say?
Right, my 20th anniversary was August 22nd.
Okay, 20 years in the system. So I encourage you to really check out his website and really get out, and regardless of not just for Mr. Dixon, but for all the candidates that are running, I challenge you to get out and make your vote count during this voting season. And it's important that we have a voice in who serves us in this county. And I wanted to bring someone like Mr. Dixon so you have the opportunity to really get to know the man. A lot of times we just see the signs around town, or we hear people encouraging us to vote for different ones, but it's important that we really get to know the person, not just his work, but who he is as a person, his integrity, his level of integrity, his family life, and I am really blessed to hear the things that I've heard here today. And Mr. Dixon, I thank you for joining us here on the broadcast. All that you've shared has been a blessing, and I'm sure the community feel that they know you a little bit better. I've met you before, and I've never had a lot of close dealings with you, but your spirit, I have to tell you today that I've always loved your spirit because as a woman of God, you can pick up an aura from people and their spirit, and you have a kind spirit, but I know that if you need to be firm, you will be firm, and I think that's really what it takes, someone that allow themselves to be led by their integrity to do the right thing for the people in this community. Thank you so much for joining us. Any last closing words before we go off? Anything that you'd like to say to the public?
Well, I would ask for your support and for your vote on November the 6th. Likewise, you can vote early by absentee ballot or by going to early voting starting October the 18th.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you again for joining in. I pray that you've been blessed by hearing the story of Faris Dixon. He is a candidate for our district court judge here in Pitt County. So I encourage you to get out and vote. Make sure you make your vote count during this voting season. I want to remind you that on the ballot that you have the presidential box to check who you're voting for president. You also have, you can vote straight party, but when it comes to the judges, you have to find them on the ballot. So make sure you find it on the ballot and vote for the judge that you desire to have in office, okay? We'll see you next time right here on Incite-tv.
Hello, my name is Thomas Lynch, CEO of Incite-tv. We want to thank you for watching our programming. If you have any questions about the program you just viewed, please email us at info@incite-tv.net. If you have any questions about our organization, don't hesitate to log on to our website at www.incite-tv.net. It is an honor to bring you the best in North Carolina programming. And again, we thank you for watching our network.
Where do we go from here?
What up, world? This is Eric Roberson, and you are checking out Incite-tv.
With these feelings.